Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Rundown, where we talk about 2A news and conservative views. I will be your host today, Craig DeLuz, coming at you from the West Coast, the left coast, behind the Iron Curtain, otherwise known as the Sierras. But as we all know, I do not do this program by myself.
That's right. My name is Mike Piwowarski, coming to you live from the East Coast, the coast with the most, from the co-host with the most, here on the Rundown. 2A views, conservative news, and Craig, it's a special kind of day.
Oh, yes, it is. Mike. Wrong day. There we go.
It's raining tacos from out of the sky. Tacos, no need to ask why. Just open your mouth and close your eyes. It's raining tacos. It's raining tacos out in the street. Tacos, all you can eat. Lettuce and shells, cheese and meat. It's raining tacos. Yum, 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 yum. It's like a treat.
That's right, folks. It is Taco Tuesday. How are you doing today, Mike?
You know, I like to sing that one sometimes like Elvis would sing it. I think he would have a good time with that song. Although I don't know if he would say tacos or tacos. I don't know.
Oh, I think you'd say something like tacos. Yep, yeah, you say tacos.
I think he would say tacos.
I think I like some tacos right there.
Tacos. You know, we actually mixed. No, we didn't. We missed tacos while we were out in Vegas a week or so ago. But that's right. We found a good substitute for tacos. We found vodka and Red Bull. So
Vodka and Red Bull is not a substitute for tacos, but it does go a long way in helping to ease the pain from the lack of tacos.
Listen, in Vegas, it was a substitute for everything. So it worked out.
It was funny though, Mike. My wife asked me, she was like, what did I enjoy the most about Vegas? And I really thought about it. You know what it was? It was the food. we had some really nice dining experiences that last week.
Yeah, you know, I try to curb that. I try to save the big meal for one day for the whole week out there, but it was too many people that wanted to go eat food that week. So it was rough. It was a lot of food. I'm not complaining. I'm just saying it was too much. It was too much food.
So what I did was I tried to be smart about it. I tried to kind of save I ate healthy mostly during the mornings and afternoons, and then just in the evening just ate wherever we wound up. And once again, had some phenomenal food, whether it was the buffet over at the Wynn, whether it was all you can eat sushi at Sushi 21, or Carmine's was probably, if it was not the best, it was one or two on the list.
Don't forget Hofbrauhaus.
Oh yeah, definitely cannot forget Hofbrauhaus. That was phenomenal. Although that kind of crossed over into the beer also kind of made that a great experience.
Well, listen, it's for those that have ever been dining with me, when they come out and say, "Would you like something to eat?" I tell them, "No, I can't eat on an empty stomach. I have to have some drinks first because it takes up some of the space there. It's actually very healthy for you too. It takes up some of the space there in your stomach, and you don't stuff it full of food. And look, if you start eating stuff like Mexican food, you got nachos, you start dropping dry nachos in your stomach without a little, alcohol base down there to soften their blow, you could damage your stomach. So it works for me that way anyway.
It did appear to work at least for that week.
It did. It definitely did. I went out last night to the VFW. We had our meeting up there, and they asked me what I wanted, and I said, let me get a vodka Red Bull, and I had it, Craig, and all the lethargy I've had since I got back was gone, just like that.
Was it the vodka or the Red Bull?
It was both. I think it was the combination of both. It was the body going, wait a second, you flushed us full of this stuff for a week, and then you took it straight off. So we need one back. So that's all I did. It was just one, just a little.
Okay,
taste,
I see. You were getting your fix in.
Well, yeah, just remind care of me.
There you go. Speaking of taking care of folks, let's take care of our sponsors before we get started today.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's talk about our good friends out there at Hitman Industries, hitmanindustries.net, hitmanindustries.net. If you got your AR in the past 5 years, you probably have one of their barrels and don't even know it. Well, now you can go out and get yourself a new barrel for your next build or to rebarrel your current rifle at hitmanindustries.net. California Republican Assembly fighting a good fight behind enemy lines. Now you can be part of California's future today. Go visit the California Republican Assembly. If you want some awesome combat gear, some tactical gear, field gear, go see our friends at uscombatgear.com. And of course, if you want an awesome holster, tactical holster, Valentine's Day is coming up. These will make some great gifts. Get yourself over to hogholsters.com. That's HAWG holsters.com. Use the discount code The Rundown, all caps, no spaces, one word, and make somebody happy for Valentine's Day.
Yep, folks, look, these are the folks who bring us to you so that we can bring you to them. So do us a favor. Visit them by following the links in the description to this program. Check them out. Spend some money with them. Make sure you tell them that it was the guys over at The Rundown that sent you. Also, if you haven't done so, please make sure you like, share, subscribe. Let folks know about The Rundown. Let them know that you watch and or listen to us. And let them know there's tons of places where they can listen and watch. We don't care how you partake. We just care that you partake.
There you go.
All right, jumping into today's news. Right now, police reform is the buzzword of the week. You hear Democrats, right and left, well, there are no right Democrats, but you hear politicians on the right and left talking about the need for, quote-unquote, police reform. Now, the interesting thing about this is, and this is something that is a little, well, I won't say a little-known secret. No one on the left really knows this, or at least they're not paying attention to it. There was, during the Trump administration, there was police reform that was actually offered up. It was actually bipartisan law enforcement reform, and it was offered up by none other than South Carolina Senator Republican Tim Scott. Now, the interesting thing about this was that they include the one thing that they would not include in this was ending qualified immunity for law enforcement, but it included everything from ending chokeholds or making chokeholds a federal crime. It included things like creating a registry. Well, let me clarify. There was already an executive order which put together a registry, making it so that if individuals were to be fired for abuse or for basically for malfeasance, that information would go into a database should they be hired later. Now, what's interesting this week is you got folks like Dick Durbin and other Democrats who are basically saying, well, the Republicans will never allow there to be any sort of reform. Well, that's just not true because, once again, Tim Scott actually offered it. In his bill, he included things like training for law enforcement, in particular, de-escalation training. What are some of the other things that he included in here? Once again, making it a federal crime to do chokeholds. I'm trying to like read it and talk at the same time. Oh, that's right. It also created a duty to intervene, meaning that, so for example, in the case of Tyree Nichols, you had, or in the case of George Floyd, it wasn't just the officer who was engaged in the activity or in the violence, but it put on the other officers a duty to intervene. And yet this basically, now, mind you, Democrats didn't get everything they want because they weren't going to get qualified immunity. But the reality is that Republicans have offered it, and they had support of their caucus, and the Democrats actually wound up filibustering it.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I love how now it's called a police reform as opposed to defund the police. It's just defund the police 2.0 is all we're seeing there. When you go through this, it's defunding because here's the money we're going to give you, but we want you to do exactly what we want you to do and the way we tell you to do it. It's just simply the defund the police 2.0. Craig, a lot of those things you listed there that Senator Scott talked about were things that are already being included in successful, well-funded agencies. It's been going on for years and years. So the formula there exists. The only thing that I would say, though, when it comes to the qualified immunity, which was brought up as well, is law enforcement has no problems with with qualified immunity as long as you don't break the law or violate the Constitution. You're protected from those civil charges. What we need to do is expand qualified immunity, which is what was Harlow v. Ferguson, 1982, I think it was, to the rest of the criminal justice system, to include the judges and the legislatures that make the law.
Oh no, I completely agree. This idea of full immunity or immunity that law that in particular that politicians get, because is absurd. And when we look at the increase in crime, and there is a direct correlation between the changes in laws relating to bail, relating to reduced sentences, as we release more criminals out on the street as a part of quote unquote public safety reform or criminal justice reform, what we're finding is that those individuals are now going out on the streets, and they are, many of them, not all of them, I won't even say most of them, but many of them are going out and they're not only committing more crimes, but many of them are actually committing violent crimes while they are then released back out onto the streets. And I think that to ignore that, and they need to be held accountable. I also would love to see when you see some of these politicians pass things that the Supreme Court has definitely already ruled are, oh, look, this is unconstitutional, you can't do it. And then the politicians go and do it anyway because they know they're not going to be removed from office. They're not going to suffer any civil penalties. They're not going to suffer any criminal penalties if they just flat out just violate the Constitution because, well, they've got that sort of blanket immunity. That has got to change.
Yeah, luckily in Florida we have one, and recently got strengthened. We have a preemption law for firearms, so anything that comes up in firearms below the state level, it can't be done. None of these smaller legislative bodies are allowed to pass it, and if they do, it would normally just be deemed unconstitutional or be removed from the books. They'd have to force it from the books, but now the part that just went into effect thanks to our state constitution, or excuse me, state Supreme Court ruling says if one of those individuals passes that law, Craig, and it goes against the current state firearms law, that they can, one, be removed from office immediately. Two, they can receive fines, civil forfeitures, and be charged civilly with it. And this is the great part, that no public funds will be allowed to defend them. They must do it on their own.
Well, there you go. That would be really, really nice to see. Unfortunately, in California, I don't see anything like that happening anytime soon.
No. Nope.
Okay, the next story. Now, this is interesting because this is my first time hearing this. You know that Durham, there's actually John Durham, who was tasked as a special counsel with the Department of Justice to investigate the origins of the Russian Kaluga hoax. His job was basically to investigate and find out how this came to be. And sadly, it's taken a lot longer for things to come about, for information to come about. But we have actually started to see some information coming out. We've started to see some recommendations or criminal charges. But what's interesting is now the Senate Judiciary Committee. Now, mind you, this is now the Democrat-controlled Senate Judiciary Committee. They are now mulling actions amid fallout from the Durham probe. Now, what they're doing now, Mike, is they're alleging that during the Durham investigation, that they basically were inappropriately handling the probe. So, the people who were tasked with investigating, with investigating in particular the House and the Senate when it came to the Russian Kaluga scandal, and all I can do is call it a scandal because the scandal was really in the lies that were told. They're now investigating the investigators. They're like wondering, well, wait a minute. What they're investigating, for example, Bill Barr's involvement in the investigation. Well, his involvement in the investigation, by the way, had something to do with the fact that he was Attorney General at the time these accusations were being made. So obviously they're going to involve him or ask him a lot of questions or include, he's going to play a huge role in this. They're talking about abuses in the special counsel investigation out. Anyway, man, it's just what they're basically saying is they're trying to throw the investigators under the bus for basically pointing out that, Russian collusion was a fabrication of Russians, of the Democratic Party, of the Justice Department, and, members of Congress.
Folks, let me just clarify for you. I know Craig, you misspoke there. It's currently the Republican-controlled Senate Judiciary Committee. And Craig, and I'm sure it was just a simple misspeak going back and forth there. But that this story is difficult to
Mike,
follow.
Mike, I think you're thinking of the House judiciary. Republicans control the House, not the Senate.
Yes, the House. That's the House. I'm sorry. What did I say? The Senate? Yes, the House. The House. Yes, the House. The House Judiciary Committee. Yeah, so that's where the story gets confusing, folks. You read the story, and it's like we're talking about the House, we're talking about the Senate, we're talking about then, we're talking about now, and then we're talking about investigating their own party. It took this story took a good, I don't know about you, Craig, a good 2-3 reads just to find the direction it was going.
Right.
But yeah, absolutely, you're absolutely right, and that's the point I was trying to make. It's like I'm still not clear what they're doing. We're talking about now the new House Republican committee there taking a look at the investigators that were Republicans at the time, but they would have done it differently. They think it was done wrong. They think they forgot things. This story really goes around in circles, and I'm not quite sure the outcome they're looking for here.
Well, what they're going for, Mike, is once again, this is the Senate Judiciary Committee, controlled by the Democrats. What they're trying to do is they're trying to discredit John Durham. They're trying to say his investigation was they did a bunch of things wrong. They did a bunch of things that were unethical, so that when the information comes out about exactly who paid for the dossier, the Russian dossier, right? Who was involved in it? Who lied on the FISA applications? All of this is all stuff that's come out of the result of the Durham investigation.
Yes.
All of that, they want to taint all of that by saying that John Durham was a crooked investigator is what they're trying to do.
Gotcha. There we go. There's the story. Okay.
Right.
Yeah. Like, because this thing jumped back and forth between Senate and House. And yeah, so the Senate's trying to prove one thing while the House, on the other hand, is saying, what are you doing? Why are you bothering with this old investigation?
Exactly. See, the House, they want to take the information from the Durham investigation and they want to include that then in a bunch of committee hearings to talk about how did this Russian collusion lie come to be. And they want to put that out for the public. Now, mind you, I'm wondering if it's going to get the same sort of play, for example, that the January 6th committee got. I mean, I wonder if they're going to do prime time television produced, made for TV hearing, the same one that they did when they did the January 6th. I doubt it. Republicans have said they're not going to do that. But I'm wondering what sort of coverage it's going to get in the mainstream media. We can already see right now here, The Hill, they're taking a particular tact. They're like, yeah, no, we're going to side with the Dems on this one.
Yeah, they have been looking for season 3 material for the January 6th hearing. So this might be it. You might be, listen, it's going to take you, the first 4 weeks of this program just to figure out what's going on. Figure out the players and figure out the storyline, because this one weaves in and out of both houses and the DOJ before you can finally figure out what who was it, Colonel Mustard in the closet with the statue.
You always have to start whenever you're talking about the committee hearings. You always have to understand. You have to look. Okay, is it Senate or is it House? Because two different leanings and two different goals.
Yeah.
Although it's kind of the same, because in both cases it's to save their own butt, make the other party look bad.
Oh, that's always the goal, right? Unless you've got a non-politician up in there, hint, hint. But it's always the goal is to save their own butts and their own jobs.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, Bob. Yes, sir, Bob. All right, moving right along. COVID emergency powers are to end on May 9th. Now, all right, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong. But yeah, just go ahead. Just assume I'm wrong. Okay. So supposedly back last fall, COVID was the Biden said that COVID was over, right?
Yeah.
There's no more COVID emergency. Even Gavin Newsom, right, back in September, ended his emergency powers, which I think they have. Matter of fact, I think they just ended, or they're supposed to end sometime this month or next month or something like that. But he put off the ending of his emergency powers. Well, now Joe Biden, while he has declared an end to the COVID-19 public health emergency, the emergency powers are not going to go away until May 11th. Now, I wonder why it is that if there's not an emergency, why does he need emergency powers?
Oh, well, come on, Craig. That's easy. If I give up the piece of paper that we've written on that says, we no longer have the powers, then they would no longer have the power. All right. You know what it's about. It's not about the COVID. It's not about protecting you. It's about the power. And that's what they don't want to give up. And the excuse will be, of course, Craig, that uh, they don't want to take away their ability to help us in case there's another variant that shows up. So they'll have that ability to help us in case another variant shows up. And it ends in California the end of February, last day of February there.
See, I don't know. We're so used to living under the tyrannical powers of Gavin Mussolini, we don't even know when we are to be set moderately free. And when I say moderately free, I mean, okay, they're taking off the finger shackles is what they're doing. That is life in California, sadly. But once again, and this is the thing I think we have pointed out time and time again on this program. This is not about protecting people from COVID. This is about government control and power. This is about giving them them taking the ability to be able to lie to us, the ability to be able to control our speech, their ability to be able to control when, where, and how we go. And it's once again, it's all about control. That's what their goal is here, folks. Their goal is to control us, get us used to being controlled, so that when they declare another emergency, like gun violence national emergency, that then they can subvert our rights, take those rights away, and we, as a people, will sheepishly just kind of hand them over.
Exactly right. We've been conditioned at this point, right? They've given you, they've put the fear in you, and then they take the rights away from you. Who else did that? That's how Hermann Goering helped gain control of the German populace.
Yeah, sadly, that'd be what we're talking about. All right, next in line has to do. Okay, so this story right here has kind of two aspects of it. So in California, when I say in California, I'm talking almost like right up the street. There was a Tesla that actually caught fire. Right now, cars catch fire randomly every day. Cars catch fire randomly, but rarely do you have cars that require 6,000 gallons of water to put out. 6,000. Once again, 6,000 gallons of water. So one of the challenges that you have in this particular case is, once again, when you consider the materials that go into making up the Tesla, the battery, and all of that, once again, while they rarely catch fire, it has been known to happen. This is not the first time, but it definitely won't be the last time that a Tesla catches fire. But when they do, they burn, and it's very, very difficult to put them out. Yet you have folks there in Washington, D.C. and in Sacramento, California, who are pushing the idea, Mike, of everybody having to have an electric vehicle.
Yeah, Craig, what's the old line? I think Teslas, they're mostly not flammable.
Mostly non-flammable.
Yeah. Listen, I'm gonna give a little dig on your fire departments out there. First off, and I know a little bit something. Being first responder, we had to go over with the hose draggers and learn some of their skills just in case. And if you have a fire that you have identified as a source that's going to continue to burn no matter what amount of water you put on, what you do is you no longer put water on that fire, and now you move out to the perimeter of that and make sure everything around the perimeter stays safe and secure. 6,000 gallons of water, Craig, that's like enough to power all of the water requirements for half your state there. I mean, you guys are so short on water, they shouldn't be doing this. Look, you see where the car is, and it's isolated. This was not sitting in a parking garage. It wasn't near a home. This thing's isolated on the side of the road. What they should have done is
it was actually on the freeway. So basically, all traffic was stopped.
Right. Well, yeah, but that's going to happen with any car fire. It doesn't matter. So you move to it and you just protect everything else around it. Instead they went for the techniques called surround and drown, and they continued to put water on it, and it didn't work. Well, at some point you need to know. Oh, and by the way, these firemen, unless they're a podunk volunteer fire department that showed up yesterday for the first day on the job, they know that they're not supposed to be dumping 6,000 gallons worth of water on this fire to keep it from burning, right? But besides the technique for how to deal with this fire,
right?
The Tesla batteries, are an issue. I'm not going to throw Elon Musk and the entire company under the bus, it says like 0.01%. The difference is, that's probably the same burn rate for a Toyota, sparking up on fire. The difference is the first responders need to know how to deal with,
Yes.
the type of fire and the type of car.
And have the appropriate materials and equipment and training to be able to do so. Now,
Yeah, and I think they have the materials and equipment. The problem was they didn't have the knowledge to, again, set a perimeter up and keep the fire from spreading rather than try and put a fire out that's not going to go out.
right. Well, eventually they got it out. I will put it to you this way. There are tons of people who would have been sitting in traffic on highway. And keep in mind, Highway 50 in Sacramento, especially around this time, it is a major artery we're talking, it's a major artery in Sacramento. There was no, I think their belief was, and you're probably 100% correct in terms of how they should have handled it, but I think their thinking was, if we've got to try and find a way to get this artery back open.
Usually that's the last thing a fireman's thinking of, and I can tell you that from a lot of years in first responder service.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the firemen train on day one how to block 7 lanes of traffic for a guy on the side of the road that sprained his knee. That's just what they do. And I love my hose dragger friends, but come on, you know what I'm talking about. They're not worried because guess what happens when bumpers and cars smash behind them? It's not their job. So they
not my job, man.
Not my job. So yeah, these guys they just need to be a little more educated. This happens a lot. Listen, we had cars come out with airbags. Remember, airbags would start to pop, and they would do that. So it's just a matter of training and making sure they get up to speed, which makes me wonder and makes me concerned, Craig. How is the funding for your fire departments in that area? Why don't they have the updated?
Oh, there's no shortage of funding. I just tell you right now, the firefighters unions and the police unions are relatively strong when it comes to getting their resources. Anyway, but what's funny about it is, and a lot of people don't realize this, like there has been a bit of a boom when it comes to electric car sales in California. In fact, California has a majority of all new sales for electric vehicles. Well, they're in California, primarily because of the tax incentives. But here's the funny part, Mike, is 70% of those sales are Teslas.
Yeah.
70%. Now, I want you to think about this.
Yeah.
Think about how many times all the big push. I mean, you just had Biden out there promoting, electric car credit at the national level. In fact, what was funny was he was in a Hummer, an $90,000 Hummer that, by the way, does not qualify for the tax credit. But he took a picture in that Hummer. But you notice you don't hear him talking about Teslas at all, even though Teslas make up overwhelming majority of all electric cars that are being sold. And by the way, they're pretty darn expensive.
Yeah, coming down in price, still pretty expensive up there. They're at the higher end, that's for sure. You can't blame Elon Musk, right? The guy's been focusing on this. He's got the best engineers, and meanwhile, everybody else is out there designing stuff that looks like Ed Begley was driving it 20 years ago. So it's the guy's done a good job. It's a good car. If you've ever ridden in one, it's a good solid car. It doesn't look like it was put together by some dude in their garage.
Well, I'll tell you, it's funny. You go to Southern California, and what I noticed with a lot of the rideshare folks, a lot of them are driving Teslas. Yeah. And I asked him, I'm like, dude, are you really making that much money driving Uber that you can afford? I said, that you can afford a Tesla? And he said, when you look at what gas prices are in Southern California, he's like, by leasing a Tesla, he's like, I'm paying less than I would have if I had to put gas in the car and make a car payment. He's like, I'm more than earning back now. He's like, now I don't know if I can afford to buy it new, but hey, leasing it, especially through the lease program, because that's the other thing that he did that was really smart is he hooked up the rideshare folks to make sure they got good financing deals.
Yeah, and remember, for those that don't have or don't know about EVs, it's reverse of the mileage. Whereas with gasoline, you get better highway and less mileage in the city. For EVs, it's different. It's they get the best mileage rates in the city stop and go traffic because of the power generated from the braking system with the heat on the braking system to help recharge the battery. So the more they stop and go, the better mileage they get. Quick EV electric vehicle sidebar. So because your governor did this in California. Well, our governor this past week here in Florida, Captain Florida Ron DeSantis, said, "Listen, if you're going to own an EV, if you're going to own an electric vehicle, prepare to pay more in taxes because we're not letting you get around the state taxes for roads and the highways. So they're going to get an extra little tax hike if you own an electric vehicle."
That there right there is another thing that people aren't thinking about in California. It's like, how are you going to fund? I mean, it's the gas tax that funds our highways. Was supposed to, but how are you going to pay for that? Well, they're just going to charge you an extra tax on your electric vehicle.
There you go.
There you go. All right, moving along to our parting shot, brought to you by Hog Holsters. That's hogholsters.com. Go there, get your tactical concealed carry holster today. Remember to use the discount code, The Rundown, all caps, no spaces. Get yours today. All right, you guys know that several Democrats were removed from their committees, and well, they're a whining and a crying. And here you have some some images of those folks saying response to losing their committee seats. You have Adam Schiff, you have Eric Swalwell, and you have Ilhan Omar all sitting in their high chairs, whining and crying. Adam Schiff saying the GOP should not treat us the way we treat them. Now remember, that's because there were two Republicans who they refused to seat in committee hearings. Representative Gozer and Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, they refused to give them committee assignments. And as a result, now some of these folks are not going to be allowed to sit on theirs. There you have Swalwell with his little Chinese bib on, and then you've got Ilhan Omar, who is basically sitting there saying it's not fair. Now, Mike, the one thing I will say is if there's one person who is probably going to get around it and probably going to get their seat back, it might be Ilhan Omar, because at least with both Schiff and Swalwell, there is clear evidence that Adam Schiff lied and lied multiple times, abusing the fact of saying, well, we have evidence and wait till you get a chance to see it. And it turns out there was no evidence. He just flat out lied. Right. And then you got Swalwell, who is basically, sleeping with a Chinese spy. He clearly is not qualified for any sort of a clearance. But Ilhan Omar, in terms of the foreign relations, the only thing I can say is you can basically, her anti-Semitic remarks are really the one argument that they have, but that does not seem to be boding well for a number of folks, even some Republicans.
Yeah, it's they're just gonna have to deal with it, Craig.
Yeah.
Listen. It's exactly like this cartoon said. These individuals prevented qualified Republicans from sitting in committees, and now they can just sit on the side and they can pout. And nobody cares. Nobody cares. Just go about your business and I don't know. Go answer your phone calls from the Chinese hookers.
Well, now, just so you know, it might actually be working, because here Eric Swalwell is saying, look, ever since I got thrown off the committee, the hot Chinese spies won't return my calls.
Does that mean it's the non-hot ones that are calling him now?
Evidently, it must be the non-hot ones that are calling him now. And then finally, that right now there's an effort. Well, in California, they've made it so that now you can sue firearms manufacturers. As long as they have broken the law, you can sue someone who has violated California gun law. But the interesting thing is, even at the federal level, they want to make it so that you can sue gun manufacturers. The funny part is that while Democrats want to hold the manufacturers of this shot liable, and there you have a picture of what appears to be, is that a Smith & Wesson revolver?
Looks like a Smith 686. Yes, it does.
Yes, sir. But not this shot. And here you have a revolver modified to include a Pfizer shot of the COVID vaccine.
Yeah, frankly, Craig, I don't know how I'm still alive sitting here without the jab. I don't know how I'm doing it.
I know, man. You have defied all logic and knowledge by still being alive.
That's it. Yep.
But it is interesting that they don't want to hold them accountable, but yet they want to hold firearm manufacturers. Anyway, I find it to be interesting.
Oh yeah. It has nothing to do with actual public policy. It has everything to do with power and control, and they want to get their way.
Right. There you go. All right, it's about that time. But before we go, why don't you give another quick shout out to our sponsors?
HitmanIndustries.net, HitmanIndustries.net, rifle and pistol caliber barrels, rifle and pistol caliber length barrels available. So check them out at HitmanIndustries.net. California Republican Assembly, fighting a good fight behind enemy lines. Now you can take part in California's future today. Check out California Republican Assembly. And of course, if you want some awesome field gear, some tactical gear, some hunting gear, hiking gear, whatever it may be, go visit our friends over at uscombatgear.com.
All right, folks, once again, check them out. Follow the links in the description of this program and let them know that the guys over at the Rundown sent you. On that note, we're going to call it a day. We hope you guys have some fun with the rest of your afternoon/evening. And we will be back tomorrow. That will be on Hump Day. Oh, wow. Fun day. See you tomorrow.